Welcome to my 6-part tutorial series teaching you how to use GameMaker to make a simple platformer. I'm Dr. Skylar L. Anderson at the University of St. Thomas, and thus far we have a game that has some jumping mechanics, death mechanic, or game over. We have combat. We have a checkpoint system. We have wall jumping. Checkpoint. I can use my combat weapon system to attack some enemies, and we have a door system where if we touch an invisible block, we can transition between rooms with fade-ins and fade-outs, which look really nice. And in this video, we are going to learn about GameMaker's auto tiling system, which allows GameMaker to automatically fill in quadrants of the game with graphics that fit with each other, like a puzzle. We're going to introduce sounds, adding sounds to your game, and adding tutorial signs, little signs that the player can touch, and it'll teach the player how to play the game. Now, a couple of things. First, you might have noticed that a little different than previous videos, the blocks, the block sprite, the S block sprite looks a little different, and that's one of 3 things you need to do before starting the rest of this video. So what are the 3 things? First, you need to change the S block sprite, which is like here, edit image, to something semi-transparent. So what? Because we need to be able to see the tile system underneath it, as well as see where the blocks are for collisions. And so what I like to do is I like to just exit out of there. You can just exit out of whatever sprite image you have here, and it'll clear it, but you still have the same 64 by 64 pixel canvas. I just click like a dark gray, then I go over here and I change the alpha to something in the middle. I click the fill tool, I fill it, and then I click the line tool over here, and I go to a darker gray, and then I just click and hold, and I do an X or a cross through it, and then I do an outline to it. This way I see where the borders of the block are at all times and where the center is, and also it is semi-transparent. Everything else stays the same, but you need a semi-transparent block. So that's the first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to do is design 2 full levels. So in the last video, I had you delete R level 2, but I need you to create a second level and add the doors back in. I have it all, the whole level for level 1 designed here. I have a door here and its creation code. I have the instructions going to level 2. So if I open up level 2, I also have a door here off to the side with the creation code going back to our level 1. So do a full design of 2 levels and just get everything working nicely there. Play through it, make sure everything works. And then the last thing you need to do before we get started is you need to create a script to house all of the creation code that's in RSplash. So if you recall, where we declare our global variables is in the RSplash room creation code. But take all of that and put it into a script called initialize, initialize, initialize. So you'll see that I have an initialize script here where I have copied and pasted what I had previously had in the RSplash creation code. And then I replaced it in RSplash with just this script. And whenever we make changes to what we want to have run before the game starts, we just go to our initialize script and we put it there. So after you've done those 3 things, redesign the S block sprite, fully design 2 levels, and then create a script called initialize and move everything from the RSplash creation code to that script and add the initialize script to the RSplash creation code. If you've done those 3 things, then we can get started with the rest of the game. Now, before we get started, I'm just going to run the game and make sure that the sprite is loaded up properly and everything is working. Yes, everything is working. So let's get started with an auto tile system. So to make an auto tile system, we need to import a tile sheet. Now, you can find tile sheets online. GameMaker, the company like Yo-Yo Games or GameMaker, has free tile sheets you can find on their website if you're logged in with an account. However, I recommend you just create your own tile sheets. I have a tile sheet that I've created, and feel free to download mine, play around with it, like draw numbers on each of like the blocks, and like after you put in the tile system, like figure out what each tile does and then design your own. That's what I did. to figure out what are floors, what are walls, what are ceilings, what are middle parts, whatever. So go to sprites and create a new sprite and call this S tiles, and then import the tile sheet, which is under assets, other sprites, S tiles, and this is our tile sheet. Now it looks like a bunch of complicated stuff right now, but each of these are blocks in a grid. And these tile blocks are 64 pixels by 64 pixels. So I'm going to exit out of that. And I'm going to create a new tile sheet. So I might need to move my head here so you can see where I'm going. So down here at the very bottom, where it says above timelines, you'll see a folder called tile sets. So right click tile sets, go to create, and go to tile set. And I'm going to move my face back. So now you know where to find that. So here in tile set, we're going to call this tile set lowercase t for tiles, and we're going to call it t tiles because we only have one for this game. We don't need to change the name. And we're going to assign the sprite that we've added S tiles. And now you should see a grid. However, this grid is too small because we've designed our tiles to be 64 pixels by 64 pixels wide. So go over here where it says tile width and tile height and change those numbers to 64 and 64. And now we get a nice, beautiful grid of showing us what our tiles are going to be. Now, over here, click auto tiling. And I'm going to just make this window a little bigger because I'll need it to be. And we're going to create an auto tile template. This is going to make sense after we do it. We see two different auto tile templates, 16 or 47. 16 is used for certain types of games like top-down games. 47 is great for side view 2D games. So I'm going to hit plus next to 47, and here we have this pop up. And now what we need to do is we need to click on each tile so it gets assigned to this tile set. Now, it might be a little confusing, but follow me. This first tile in the top left, we actually need to click the bottom right tile for that. So just click that and you'll see that it gets filled in. Now for everything else, you just go in order. So this is the second tile. We have the second tile here and I just click, 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 and I click through. Now, if you ever make a mistake, simply delete this auto tile template by pressing the trash can, but it should be pretty simple if you just click in order. So, oh, I made a mistake, see? So I'm just going to trash that, hit plus again, and start again. See, even I make mistakes. So let's click through this quickly so I don't waste your time, and hopefully I won't make another mistake. Here we go, last row. And this is the last one I click, and it's done. I don't click the last block because we already clicked the last block, and our tile set is complete. Now under library, this is a fine tile library name for our tile set, but I'm going to click it, and I'm going to hit F2 and rename it to auto tile. And yeah, now we're good. I'm going to exit out of that, and I'm going to exit out of that. And we can go to our level 1 and open up our room editor. And we're going to add a new tiles layer. So you go over here, it says new tile, create new tile layer. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click and drag it to the bottom underneath blocks, but above background. I'm going to rename it to tiles. And then over to the right where it says no tile set, I'm going to click that, click the folder, and where it says T tiles, that is our tile set. And then lastly, over to the right where it says libraries, click libraries, and then click auto tile. Now you are all set. You can see that I can set different sizes for our auto tiling, but for now, just set it back down to 1. And all you have to do is click and drag, left click and drag, and anywhere you want, you can fill this in. It won't let you do anything outside the room. And also, if you make a mistake, just hold right click to erase. So I'm just going to relatively quickly fill this in. Now, these auto tiles aren't part of our collision system. They are 100% visual, which means I have the blocks here for collisions, but we have a whole section here without any blocks. However, our player cannot access this area because it's completely sealed off. So I can actually just feel free to fill those in with tiles as well. Going here. And again, I can't fill this in over here because it won't let you do tiles outside of rooms because that's not how tiles work. They are 100% just visual decoration. So here's our first room. I'm going to do the same with our level 2. So I'm going to go back to, so we have room editor here. I'm going to click over to assets, double click our level 2. I'm going to create a new tile layer, call it tiles, drag it down above the background, below the blocks. I'm going to select the tile layer, go over to room editor again, click tile set, libraries, auto tile, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Now, once again, we have this whole area right here without blocks because we don't need blocks because the player cannot access that. Blocks are only used for collision. I can just feel free to fill that in completely. And you'll notice as you fill it in, the auto tiles change depending on their proximity to other tiles. So if I have this, it creates that, but if I have this, it creates that. It's all automatic and it's nice, pretty, very pleasant to look at. And you can do some cool things with auto tiles to make it look like ice walls or fire, and have the ground look like dirt and grass, but the walls look like stone, and you can design all of this yourself. But since our game is kind of a stripped down, very simple, cyberpunk-esque, like computer game looking game, I figured a nice simple tile set is all we needed. And that's our tile set for our level 2. So lastly, before we run our game to see how it looks, actually, let's run the game, see how it looks, and you're going to see that's going to look a little ugly because we can see our blocks still, and we need to get rid of that. So it's very easy. All we have to do is go to O block, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with O door, which is we unchecked visible. And here under O block, we're going to uncheck visible, and this makes it so when it's in the game, it's invisible. However, in the room editor, we can still see it. Exit out of that. And now if I run the game, we get a beautiful auto-tiled game with walls, floor, ceilings. I'm going to just run through it, make sure everything looks good with our second level. Yep, everything is looking dandy as candy. Exit out. Now let's add sound effects and music. So for this, we need to add a bunch of assets. We're going to create a bunch of sounds. So sounds folder, right click, create sound. There we go. And I'm going to call this SND music. And I'm going to go to our assets, find sounds, and add SND music. Now, if I hit the little play button, you should hear some music playing. I have a little quieter for capturing, but it will be louder in your game. And we need to do that for the following sound. So I'm actually going to just duplicate this a bunch of times. This is great about learning shortcuts, is you can go a little faster. So I just hit Control D to duplicate, Control D, enter, Control D, enter, Control D to enter to duplicate it. Now I'm hitting F2 on my keyboard to rename it SND step. So we need one called SND step. We need one called SND death. We need one called SND jump. We need one called SND checkpoint. And one last one called SND attack. And then the other two that I created, I can just delete those. And I need to import the appropriate sounds for each one. So I'm going to open attack, add attack, exit checkpoint, SND checkpoint, death, SND death. And the way I'm adding it is I'm clicking these three little dots next to the name. SND jump, S&D jump, and S&D step, S&D step. Alrighty. So for the music, let's start with the music. We're going to add some code to our initialize script, that thing we created at the beginning before we started. In the initialize script and the room code script, we're going to add this code. So I'm going to add a new comment, start music, and I'm going to write if bang audio is playing, so it checks to see if the following audio is not playing, S&D music, close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, audio play sound, S&D music, comma, priority of 1, loops true, semicolon. And I'm just going to copy this, copy, go to our room code and add it in our room code as well. So now if we run the game, oh, error, failed to convert sound. Did I not add the music sound? Let's go here. Okay, let's try that. Here we go. And so now we get some music. It'll be a little quiet because I have it turned down on my screen capture software, but in yours it'll be a little louder. Now the reason we add it to the room code and initialize is because we are going to be navigating back and forth between the two later on with our menu system. So it's good just to have both there just to make sure it's playing if it's not already playing. Now for the jump sound, go to Objects, OPlayer, Step Event, and go to the ground jump section, which should be in vertical movement, ground jump, where we jump up. Let's add if bang. Actually, you know what? I'm going to paste that previous code, delete the start music comment. Just to make it go a little faster, I can just paste that and just change S&D music to S&D jump. S&D jump, and then make sure I change this true to false because I do not want it to loop. And the reason we put if audio is not playing first is because sometimes we don't want a sound effect to play on top of itself if we jump twice in a row really quickly, for instance. So I'm actually going to copy and paste that because we're going to reuse this jump code. We're going to go up to horizontal movement region where we have the wall jump code, which is right here. I'm going to add it there. So jumps just keep the same sound. So let's test the jump sound. So it works with ground jump and works with wall jump as well. Exit out of that. And now for the stepping sound, we're going to minimize this region and we're going to go to the sprites region of OPlayer. And we're going to check for the on ground, if on ground section. There we go, if on ground. This is why commenting your code is super important. So with splayer run, pretty much find where you have splayer run. You're going to add the code, same code here, except change it from jump to step. Now here it's super important to have the if bang audio is playing or to check if this audio is not playing, because we want this to loop itself our way. So when the sound reaches the end of its audio file, we want it to restart then. And then it will immediately stop the moment we change sprites. And then let's test it out. Now we have a little stepping sound when we run. Again, it's quiet for you because I have the audio turned down on my streaming software. All right, for the attack sound, we're going to go to the attack region. And let's see. Yeah, for the key attack statement where we have screen shake here, you can just write, you don't need that if condition anymore here because the attack key only happens once. and it'll only happen when the cooldown is properly done and everything. So pretty much whenever a screen shake is appropriate, we can just add the sound, which is audio play, sound, S&D attack, priority of 1, loop, false. And we don't need an if condition here. It will work just fine without it. Yep. And for the death sound, go to our death script and add it here maybe. Audio, play, sound, S&D, death, priority of 1, loop, false. So now when I touch the spikes, we should hear a little death sound. Yep. Now in the O enemy step event, we want to make that same sound when it gets destroyed. So audio, play, sound, S&D, death, 1, false. Let's test it. Got to get to an enemy first. Yep. For the checkpoint sound, open O checkpoint step event, where it sets our checkpoint and also has that screen shake. Write audio, play, sound, S&D, checkpoint, 1, false. Test it out. And see how I'm checking each time I add a new sound, because I always want to check to see if I have a typo or a bug. And this way I can always isolate what I did wrong. Actually, I was talking over when I touched the checkpoint, so I have to try that again. Go up to the checkpoint. Yep, a little checkpoint sound, a little blip. And you can also, if any of these sounds are too loud for you, you can go open the sound asset, and under volume, you can change it to be a percentage where 1 is 100% as loud as the audio file is, or you can change it louder or quieter. So it's automatically set to 1 or 100% of its volume, but if you want it to be much quieter, set it to like 70 or 80%. You can move that and play around with the sound design of your game. Now, excuse me, my mouth is getting dry when you talk so much. Now we're going to create a sign system so that when the player is playing the game, there we go, we can add sounds, or sorry, not sounds, signs to tell the player what to do or how to play the game. And it's very important in game design to always tutorialize, to teach the player how to play it. You should never assume the player knows what keys to press or what to do. So let's start by creating a sprite. Create sprite called sSign, and import the appropriate sprite, which should be under other sprites, sign. Here we go. Set the origin to be middle center, the FPS to be 0. Now create an object called oSign and assign the appropriate sprite. There we go. Actually, let's delete that. I'm sorry about this. I forgot that in my notes. I thought it would be easier to just duplicate O checkpoint. So highlight O checkpoint and either right click and click duplicate, or do what I do, which is Control or Command D, and change that to be O sign, and change the sprite to be the sign sprite. Because a lot of the code is going to be the same, because we're going to have text appear just like we have text on the checkpoint. So the create event, keep it exactly the same, except we're going to adjust the text y variable. Actually, let's keep that at 60. I think that should work. We can always adjust that later. How is the checkpoint too high? Might be too high. We can always adjust that later, but we can keep this exactly the same. Change the text from checkpoint to just test text, please ignore, because it will be replaced later. And then in the step event, we want to get rid of all this checkpoint stuff. So first, we are going to remove everything except the text section. So just, I'm going to highlight all of this and delete it and leave the text section here. And then at the top of the event, I'm going to write if place meeting X, Y, O player, close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, else, open curly bracket, close curly bracket. So in if place meeting, we're going to add another condition, if text fade double equal sign 0. So we check to see if it's at 0. Open curly bracket, close curly bracket, audio, play, sound, S&D, checkpoint. That same checkpoint sound, 1, false, sound effect. And then we will write underneath this text fade equals text fade max. So if the player touches the sign, if text fade is all the way back down to 0, it'll play a sound. And it'll set text fade to be above 0, which is text fade max. So that's a good way to make sure that the sound will only play once. And then under else, we will write text fade equals max 0, comma, text fade minus 1. And this will reduce text fade by 1 every frame until it gets to 0. Now in our level 1, we're going to place our sign object. I'm going to put it in the checkpoints layer because it's a similar type of object. I'm going to place it somewhere in the room, maybe like here. And I'm going to run the game, make sure I don't have any bugs. I'm going to touch this. It should say test text, please ignore. Very good. And I'm noticing right now that this text is a little too close to the sign, because we're going to add a lot more text to the sign than just the word checkpoint. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to change this to like 80. And test that really quick. Yeah, that's better because we want several lines of text here for our signs. So when I touch it, we hear a sound. We go away, it fades away. Beautiful. So if it's working appropriately, we can actually go in and just like the Odor object, double click on this, go to its creation code and change its text to be whatever we want. So for instance, we can write, use arrow keys to move and jump. Run the game, use arrow keys to move and jump. Now, if we want to make it work for the design of our game, I think we need a line break here, and you can add line breaks to the middle of strings by adding /n. Now it'll look kind of goofy here, /n, but if you put that there, the game will interpret that as a line break and give us 2 lines. And that is a good distance from the sign. Looks good. I'm actually going to remove the period and change the U to lowercase. I think that'll just look a little bit more modern. There we go. And now let's add a few other instructions to the game. I'm actually going to move our sign so the player starts the game by touching it. There we go. So that first tutorial automatically pops up the moment you start the level. Let's add a few more. So I'm going to add a sign here, right here, called creation code text equals jump on walls. I'm going to add one up here called text equals use space bar to attack enemies, or spacebar to attack. Let's just say that. So now we have our signs for the room. Use arrow keys to move and jump. Jump on walls. Checkpoint. Use spacebar to attack. So it's a very useful system, and it's very adaptable, and we're actually going to be using our signs a little different when we add the button remapping system so that it can automatically interpret what buttons the player will be using. But for now, I know it's only been 30 minutes, but that is it for this video. And in the next video, we're going to add a title screen and a save and load system to our game. So I will see you there.